Hello, welcome to another UTS Startups Confessions. And I'll say the most special confessions I think I can remember having.
Oh yeah.
I just want to not say anything and just listen to yourself, Alex, because I can't think of anyone I respect more in all of the work that I've done over the years. The bar that you set for myself and for other people and anyone else that worked around you was incredible. And I've got little goosebumps just thinking back to all the moments that made me want to do better, and this actually made everyone else better as well. So this is nice. Thank you for making the time.
The feeling's mutual, mate, but you're always way too generous.
How about we stop there and let's go for a couple of drinks?
Okay, easy.
Okay, I'll dive in because this is worth paying attention to. In a couple of sentences, what is Sinch?
So the ultimate aspiration for Sinch is to help people manage, save, and grow their money. But what we're starting with is in the area of manage. And that's all about helping businesses get through cash flow crunches. And the way we do that is we convert what is fluctuating cash flow and causes those cash flow crunches into regular and predictable weekly installments, so that business owners are able to focus on the things that really add value to their business and are no longer stressed about trying to keep up managing their cash flow and paying their bills.
Bloody fintechs, just moving money back and forward and there's somehow making money. No, there's actually a beautiful angle to this in not just being an overdraft or something more simple that people then can't get access to. Talk us through how this is better than other ways of financing a business.
Yeah, thanks, Murray. Well, you know, what's really driving us is, you know, when we were doing quite a lot of research around, you know, what fundamentally do SMEs really need in Australia, we were shocked to find out that of all businesses that fail, 80% still fail because of cash flow, right? Now we've got overdrafts, business loans, credit cards. We've now got buy now, pay later. You've got invoice factoring. You've got every single product under the sun, and yet 80% still fail because of cash flow. Now within that, did you know that 50% of those businesses are already profitable? So these are businesses that are actually successful, making money, and they're still failing because of cash flow. So none of those solutions are actually solving the problem. Now on top of that, 35% of business owners dip into their personal savings to actually make up for those cash flow crunches as well. And we know that about 35% of business owners are women, and the increase of business owners being women is actually 3 times faster than what is the growth rate for men. And women are finding it increasingly difficult to access finance as well. So there's a lot that's driving the creation of Sinch and why we wanted to create something that's fundamentally different. And the way that we've designed the product is such that it's actually changing the nature of a business's cash flow profile. So it's not just giving people cash to misuse potentially, or to increase the extent of the problem they have or kick the can down the road. We're actually changing the nature of their cash flow profile, and we're also subtly increasing financial discipline at the same time.
Okay, so that sounds good to me. I can see it sounds good to yourselves as well. Why won't Westpac or some other big bank do this kind of thing?
Well, it's really hard because, you know, in every industry, there's a lot of difficulty in moving from your current business model into something that's totally different. And for centuries, I think banking's one of many but old industries. It's been working in exactly the same way since I've certainly, you know, known about it, which is you pay people less money for their savings than you charge people that borrow from you. And that's the fundamental way banking has worked forever, and it still works that way too. And I'm sure we all relate to that because we get a lot less for our savings than we're paying in our mortgages or our car loans or personal loans, and that's what they call net interest margin. And so, you know, in any area, and if you look at buy now, pay later with Afterpay and Zip and others, really hardly any banks around the world have adopted that model or have come up with products that are similar. There's been a few. Westpac's trying to do a couple now with pay in instalments. Combank, from memory, invested hundreds of millions of dollars of their money into Klarna. But other than that, it's quite scarce. And so it's really difficult for organisations to really change the way they operate because all their credit risk, all their infrastructure, all their policies are all designed around the way they do business today.
See, it's one thing for a founder off the street to say something like that. If I can, could I ask about your background?
Yes.
And help people understand why you understand this?
Well, I guess before Stone & Chalk, so I was the founding CEO of Stone & Chalk. So started off as a fintech hub, created by some really great and smart people back in 2000 and late 14, early 15. And so that really kicked off my journey back in Australia. Was at their helm for about 6.5 years, which is a really wonderful journey as we went from a largely fintech-focused incubator to becoming all emerging tech as we expanded to Melbourne and South Australia. And before that, I was in Barclays in the UK. And that really opened my mind where I discovered, in many respects, fintech and the startup space within financial services. It was just after the GFC. Lloyd's had gone under, RBS had gone under, Lehman Brothers, if you remember that name, big investment bank, went under, and many others did as well. And Barclays had bought Lehman Brothers for $1, and overnight had an investment bank as part of its portfolio. And in the time I was with them, we were charged with fundamentally trying to reinvent the bank, right? But not from a pure technology point of view, but in terms of what it meant to be a bank, as well as what it meant to be a customer of a bank. And the leadership of Barclays had really reached, a first point of epiphany for them, which for the first time in their history, and this is a 330-year-old institution, right, across 50 countries, right? So we're talking over 100,000 employees. They, for the first time, acknowledged that their competitors were no longer other big banks. Their competitors were now Google, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, and other companies like that, which would require a real step change in the way that they saw themselves and in the way they engaged with customers. And it was at that time where, we realised, and a group of us had come deliberately from outside banking, just how hard it was to get stuff done in a completely different way. And so in many respects, we'd coined this term internally of going from innovating from the inside out to having to innovate from the outside in. And that's where engaging with startups and scale-ups that had solutions to the problems we were facing became really interesting.
Yeah. Like Westpac is not going to launch Coinbase, but they can invest in it.
Or they could partner with them in providing certain solutions to customers.
Yeah. And that's the thing. So coming from that banking background, innovation background, was Nokia as well, yeah? Yeah,
it was Nokia before then in the Middle East and Australia. And that just blew my mind from both a technology and a cultural perspective. I had remit from Afghanistan and Pakistan to, I think, in the West, Tunisia, all the way to South Africa in the South, which was unreal. Lend-Lease before that here in Australia.
Okay.
And a short 7-year stint in the Australian Army.
Okay. But having seen all these large organisations and how they do things, and seeing every bank and financial institution and kind of large professional services organisation and how they're handling innovation in Australia through Stone & Chalk, to then see, okay, I'm curious to ask about Afterpay and the perspective that all these banks and innovation departments would have on Afterpay and the growth that it had. Like going back, why was that not something that came from a large organisation?
Well, I mean, what was clear is, and what I've seen as well, mate, is that there's certainly no shortage of ideas in anywhere. Big organisations, small organisations, and I think a lot of frontline staff and people that work really closely with customers in particular, really see the problems and the opportunities that are there. And I think, a lot of things naturally get stuck and caught in the prioritisation of different things and limited resources. And whereas I think there's something wonderful about a fresh start, a white canvas, really breaking things down simply in terms of, the core problem set, the opportunity that presents itself. And the process of discovery, because I think that early discovery process is actually quite innocent. It's almost like you're discovering a child for the first time, and you don't want to prejudge the child. You just want to let the child develop and see, what a personality emerges. And I think, the machinery of big organisations can make it really difficult and challenging to remove bias from that discovery process. And that's not to say that there isn't any bias in what we're doing or what any startup's doing, because there generally has to be. But I just think that the willingness to take risks and the willingness to I should say the fact that you're starting from scratch and there's fundamentally very little downside risk in terms of reputation or brand, because really you haven't got any yet. Really allows people to do things.
Yeah, you don't have to say, no, our business lending approach is wrong, we're doing something new, and potentially risk that. Or all the kind of management structures are set up for this kind of risk profile and this doesn't fit within that. You can say, no, this is the perfect way to do this for a new business, relatively new, who needs this kind of smoothing.
Yeah, and in any organisation, and you see this in the military, you see this in big defence contractors, for example, even you see this everywhere in business, where it's very hard to juxtapose what makes sense today and where you're making money today versus how that might be different in 5 or 10 years' time. And to your point, all the infrastructure, all the machinery is set up for how you're doing things today, and it takes a lot of courage to walk away from that, where you are making money, and to potentially disrupt that and do something totally different. And a lot of organisations simply just aren't prepared to take that risk.
And that's the thing for myself, like looking at your career and going from great thing to greater thing to greater thing, and build Stone & Chalk up into this, like the largest startup support organisation in Australia, supporting thousands of people to do incredible things, and then say, my next thing will be something completely from scratch for myself in this kind of industry that I know so well. That would only make sense for yourself if this is going to be a big thing.
I hope so.
Talk us through that. What is this going to be? What does the future look like for Sinch?
Oh gosh, well, I guess first of all, hopefully that people will see that it is something better than what exists today. And it is fundamentally something that's driven by this higher purpose of helping to make people and businesses more successful. Because at the end of the day, it really does mean that we have more people in jobs that they love for longer, working in businesses that are more successful and continue to grow. And that's the first thing. So, one of the things that I really got ingrained in me in the army and became, really true at Stone & Chalk is the whole, I guess you could say, principle around higher purpose, and how important that is in coalescing great people to come together to build something that's greater than themselves. And so that's probably the first thing. And then secondly, I really hope that it does get the opportunity to really get oxygenated and grow into something that it could really well be. It's got global potential in terms of its reach. It doesn't rely on any kind of regulatory arbitrage or going around the rules to try and be successful. And the product roadmap that we've got in place is really exciting. Going from cash flow smoothing to helping people, seamlessly switch their service providers to either save money or be rewarded for their loyalty.
Cool. I want to sign up. This is like, I'm sold. I'm sure most people here are sold. What's between here and that point, and how can people help this achieve what it can achieve? Yeah,
so right now we've got a prototype, or not even a prototype, more of a pilot website that's been created as more of an information, providing page, which is cashflowsmoothing.com.au. And
Great.
First of all, love to get thoughts and feedback from people. See what you really understand about the product. Do you think it would work? Why don't you think it would work? Why do you think it would work? Where we are right now is we're literally post-product and pre-launch. So we're gearing up now to do our first soft launch. And at the same time, we're getting ready for our first seed round and first debt round as well.
Okay. I like your chances of raising. With your networks and background, you'll be fine. But it sounds like an opportunity for people to get in quickly if they can.
Yeah, I mean, it's we're certainly really excited by it, and we've spoken to some of the people that we know and taken them through the opportunity and how it works with Sinch, and they're similarly excited. But at the end of the day, I'm one of these people that doesn't like to count their chickens until things are moving and customers are loving our product.
Okay, we'll count them soon. I do like to share a couple of lessons learned. If you could go back to like 2 years ago when you're starting on this journey, what would you tell yourself?
Yeah, it's funny, I've worked with and helped so many startups over the years, and thought I pretty much knew what I needed to know. And I really underestimated, at least for myself, the amount of emotional resilience you need. It's taken us 2 years of a lot of hard work to get to the point where we're ready to launch, a regulated product. And I would say at least on 10 occasions, I've had to look at myself in the mirror and ask myself really, really seriously, am I doing the right thing? Is this ever going to work? Are we ever going to make it and get to market, let alone be successful in market? So emotional resilience is probably one really big one. And it can certainly feel really lonely as well. You might have the benefit of working with co-founders, with people that are in the team. But even having that, it can still feel really lonely because there aren't that many people in society still today that really get the concept of startup. You do get quite a lot of vague looks and think it's something like a show on TV. So I'd say that's one thing that I'd love to remind myself of often, and that I'm not alone. And the other is just the sheer importance of amazing people. I'm reminded constantly of just how nothing of significance in this world is ever created in isolation. Nothing. And no matter how hard you work, how many hours you put in, how smart you think you are, you need amazing people to join the journey with you that can take what you think is good or great and just make it awesome. And I'm so grateful for the people, in my life that help take anything that I've created and make it better, and make it awesome. And that's something that, is certainly something that I constantly remind myself of, and I'm grateful for. That's really key.
I can't see how this won't be something incredible. And I do want to put in a couple of extra bonus questions around Stone and Chalk things, just to show some more context around things as well. Can I ask the same question from a Stone and Chalk perspective? If we could go back to the start there. 2014?
Yep.
15 something? What would you tell yourself then?
Yeah, great question too. Well, I've already covered the people component, and that holds true in all of those, right? That's a real life constant. One of the things that I found really challenging at Stone and Chalk was the fact that I would tend to say yes to everything. I found it so hard to just say no.
You did. You said yes to me many times.
Well, you're one key person I should say yes to.
It worked out all right. But,
But
very generous.
you know that feeling where you're trying to make an impact and you're trying to be everything to everybody, right? And you just exhaust yourself. You don't realise it at the time. You think you've got yourself under control, but you really don't. So I think one of the things I definitely tell myself is to stop trying to be everything to everybody, and it's okay to say no. That's definitely one thing that I would have needed reminding about in those 6.5 odd years that I was there. And I think also another key principle as well, because we were really trying to push a movement in Australia back in 15. Fintech really didn't exist. The startup ecosystem was a bit of a blip here and there, and there was a lot of us trying to really get the whole nation moving and get politicians behind it, state, federal, etc.
I remember the ideas boom launch down at Stone and Chalk.
That's right, good. NISA with Malcolm.
Good times.
We had quite a few things going on. We had Jobs for New South Wales launched at Stone and Chalk. We had the National Innovation and Science Agenda launched at Stone and Chalk.
Yeah. And then, hang on, I'm just checking what I can say on camera. Certain people in charge of job creation saying startups don't create jobs.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is understandable, but then you argue correctly that, okay, they do through productivity uplift in other companies, through competitive pressure, learning spillovers, provision of new services, and you then end up with wonderful things like Sydney Startup Hub.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it took a lot of perseverance to get to that point, right? And a lot of people didn't believe we'd get over the line. And it's been one of the great successes of the New South Wales government.
Yeah, in pure ROI, and I'll point to my colleague Matt Proft up the back, who was critical in making that happen as well. Because for the amount of money, having 2,000 people in a building sharing capability, attracting investment together, attracting customers together, attracting everything else that they're able to, and achieve in that productivity uplift outside of that building what otherwise would be impossible. For that amount of money, it's massively underappreciated, I think.
Yeah. And I'd say, mate, in answer to your question, Murray, around what else I would tell myself, and it's a trap that I thought I'd managed really well, but realised I hadn't, is that as a founder or a business owner or business leader, whatever interposed persona you want to take, you aren't your business. And in many respects, I thought and acted like I was, right? So Stone and Chalk's culture, its DNA, it's something that I thought I was injecting and infusing as an extension of, what I saw as this kind of like utopian workplace. And in many respects, the core parts of the team brought their own ingredients from themselves into that as well. But what it meant is that you become attached and also potentially, I don't like to use the word victim, but the ebbs and flows of business tend to affect you and your well-being as well if you don't have an element of separation. And so one of the things that I had to learn and learn the hard way was the fact that I am a separate entity to the business, even though I saw it as my little baby type thing, right? And so in many respects, that was quite a hard lesson for me to learn. And it became really, something that hit me hard when I left Stone and Chalk, where, you'd built this team, this family, this community, this brand, and all of a sudden you're no longer a part of it. And so, you feel like you've lost something. And you've got to rebuild, right? And you haven't changed, but your relationship to the business is what's changed. And so I think, if anything, if there was a way that I could go back in time and try and teach myself about that a bit better, I think that would have helped a lot.
I don't think you should have, though, because I had the same feeling after Fishburners. And I think if I didn't think I was kind of that embodiment of everything of myself being put into that, it wouldn't have raised 21 million in partnerships in 3 years, or I wouldn't have been standing outside a hospital with my son being born in the background, launching the Shanghai hub. Seriously, the Shanghai hub opened like the day after he was born, and then the Brisbane hub the month afterwards. Like, no sane person would have done that.
Yeah.
So I think you did the right thing in putting all of yourself into it.
Yeah, I guess it's, I don't know what
If not for yourself.
Yeah, I don't know what the right formula is or point of balance between going all in and really, putting everything into the success of something, but at the same time, almost having this kind of Buddhist Zen ability to, be at peace with the separation in a way. Yeah, maybe it's humanly impossible, I don't know, but I think there's something definitely there around, being able to create that gap.
Well, if only you had Sinch back then. Imagine the kind of cash flow smoothing and how that would have helped with Stone and Chalk, especially in the early days.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah, but for every business that will follow over the next couple of years, they get to benefit. If people want to know more about Sinch, they go to cashflowsmoothing.com.au.
Yeah, and reach out to us, and hopefully in the next several weeks we'll have our soft launch website replacing it, and then hopefully there's customers in front of us after that.
Okay, beautiful. We are going to turn off the camera, do a private Q&A that only the people here get to benefit from. For anyone watching at home, please come down every Friday at 3:30 for another UTS Startups Confessions. Please join me in thanking Alex Scandurra.
Thanks, Mark.